This is Track Wrestling. I'm Kyle Klingman, and we have Jon Reader. He's an assistant wrestling coach at Wisconsin, but if you want to back up, he was at Davison, Michigan, three-time All-American for Iowa State, won a championship in 2011 at 174 pounds. How are you, Jon?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me on.
When I think of you, I think of that big head wrap around your head. So either that means that you were beat up quite a bit in college, or you had skin that was just breaking a lot. Were you beat up at times when you were at Iowa State?
You know what? I think that every time I can't remember too many times where I wasn't cut open in practice, or whether it was competition. It just kind of, the skin around my eyes and the skin underneath my underneath my eyes were always breaking open, and it seemed like the further we went on, it just become easier and easier.
Did you have a roughed up junior year? It seemed like you were maybe battling quite a bit of adversity your junior year of college. Was that a rough year for you?
It was honestly one of the toughest years in my career. It was, I dealt with a lot of things, from weight issues, cutting weight, which I think eventually led to injuries, and those injuries really held me back and kind of restricted me to be the best version of myself that year. And it eventually it just spiraled out of control. I think I started the season out in control of my weight, and eventually I think I hit another growth spurt in the middle of that season, and my body wanted to grow, and I was holding it back, and I don't necessarily know if I was doing it the right way, and it led to some injuries, and then those injuries led to me not being able to perform very well at the NCAA tournament. I think I walked in as a 5 seed and lost first round, right? So it was disappointing, but I learned a lot about myself that year, that summer, the months that came after that, and it was, how do I build myself back up and get to where I need to meet, and make the necessary adjustments. And it's something that I reflect now as a coach, being able to relate in those situations, being at the lowest of lows, and being able to climb yourself back up on top of that mountain. And ultimately is, what are you willing to do to get there? So I learned a lot about myself as an athlete, as a person, and that year, I think I needed that in a sense. It made me hungry for my senior year, and I was willing to do whatever it took to get to the top.
What'd you learn, and then when you learn those lessons, how do you keep them with you? Do you write it down? Do you just take mental notes? How do you take the lessons you learn and apply them throughout the rest of your life?
I've had some great mentors across my collegiate career. I had essentially 3 different head coaches and a million different assistant coaches that they gave me different tips and great resources along the way. That a couple of things that I took to heart were journaling, just being able to journal my own journey and what works for me, and making sure I reflected back on that, and whatever was working, we got to replicate it. And that's something that Coach Bobby Douglas, he was a master at, right? He had years and years in journals of things that had worked for his programs, things that had worked for him in his personal career. And that bled into his own athletes, right? Coach Bono, Coach Sanderson, those guys all did the same things that he did. So I think journaling was a big part of it. I think being able to reflect on what worked, what didn't work. But certainly looking back on that junior year, it was tough. It was definitely tough. And it's something that I look back on all the time and talk to my guys. It's not about, the lows. I promise you to stay committed, and good things are going to happen.
Interesting how you were an All-American as a freshman, 7th, then 4th, and you didn't place, as we talked about, as a junior, and then you move up in a way, and it was just like, must have been the floodgates open. You move up to 174, you have an undefeated year, dominate throughout the year. I think you had bonus points in about 75, 80% of your matches. But what did that do, just being able to move up in weight class like that?
Oh, it was unbelievable. And like I said, cutting the weight was, I really believe it. Actually, it was a big reason why those injuries came. I was just dehydrated all the time, and I hurt my knee in the Big 12 finals my junior year, and the NCAA tournament, I couldn't even get in my stance, right? I couldn't even hit a knee. So I was very limited. And once I let my body grow and let my body just grow, right? And I ate that summer, and, I built myself back up, and I told myself, number 1 step is to get healthy. And number 2, let's go make the next team. And unfortunately, that was the University World team that summer. And I had a chance to go compete for the Team USA. So it was big. I think that letting my body grow was a huge part of the success I had in my senior year, because I started to really enjoy the process, right? It wasn't necessarily focused on cutting weight 24/7, and it really was when I was at 165. It was constantly, how did I make sure? I almost got obsessed about it, and making sure that I was hitting, by Wednesday I wanted to be this weight. After a workout I wanted to be this weight. It was down to a science, right? So my senior year, my weight, I never cut more than 3 or 4 pounds my senior year. And I loved coming into practice, and I loved learning, different techniques. And at the time, my junior year, I had a whole new staff. So I was rejuvenated in that sense, because I had a whole new staff. It was new. I was learning different techniques. I was shoring up my fundamentals, and I was excited for my senior year.
Trying to think of your journey. Were you recruited by Bobby Douglas and then Cale and then Kevin Jackson? You talked about those 3 coaches, but what was the progression and the timeline of how that happened?
So right out of high school, I was recruited by Coach Bobby Douglas, and on staff was Coach Sanderson, right? So I graduated my senior year in high school, and by the time I got to Ames, Iowa, the transition had happened, right? So Cale had took over, and Coach Douglas had retired. So that was when the transition happened. And so I built a really, really good relationship with Coach Douglas, and I continue to have him as a resource all through my career at Ames, and it's still a great resource to this day. But Coach Sanderson took over when I got to campus, and they took a chance on me, right? They took a chance on me out of high school, and to this day, I'm forever grateful for the opportunity they gave for me.
What goes into your decision? Because you were with Brent Metcalf. He was a year older than you, and then he goes to the University of Iowa. Do you have conversations with him at all about why are you going to Iowa, and then you choose Iowa State, which is, of course, is the rival school. But how do you process information when you got another really elite guy going to Iowa and then you choose Iowa State?
You know what? If you know me, I'm my own person. And when I was coming through the process, a lot of people kind of maybe thought that was a situation that was going to happen. I was going to follow Brent. And actually, we had Paul Donahoe that was at Nebraska University at the time. So there was 2 different options there. And a lot of people were like, oh, he might just follow one of those guys. And that wasn't the fact. My whole thing going through the process was I wanted to feel comfortable where I was going, and I wanted to trust the coaching staff that I was going to be a part of. And I really wanted to know I had everything I needed to win a national title. And on top of that, I wanted a great degree. So when I went to Iowa State, it felt right. The guys felt great. I meshed really well with the current team, and just the vision of what they had for me was perfect. And I fell in love with the coaching staff. And like I said, I'm very grateful for the opportunity they gave to me.
Clearly, you must have had a bond with Chris Bono when he was there throughout that time. I think he was there your junior year, but did you build a bond right away with Bono that clearly has sustained itself through today?
Yeah, so Coach Bono and I go way back. Actually, if you want to rewind it a little bit, he was part of that staff. So I started getting recruited my junior and senior year from Iowa State. He, at the time, was a longtime assistant to Coach Douglas, right? So he had been at Iowa State. I started actually my preliminary talks with Iowa State. He was part of the staff before he went to Tennessee Chattanooga. So I started there, very small amounts of communication. Fast forward my junior year, he comes in as a top assistant with Coach Jackson, and that's really where we cut our teeth and where we really started to develop our relationship. The second I got a chance to be around him, I couldn't believe how much we were alike in everything we did, and just our goals and our visions and how we attack our life. And him being a mentor and a coach to me, this was exactly what I wanted. I wanted that relationship with a coach, and I wanted to know, that it's just like that old saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And he was that guy. He was that guy that it didn't matter what time of the day it was. He was willing to do whatever it took to make sure I was taken care of. And then at the same time, we were close in similar weights that we could train together. But the relationship was built. It was very, very strong. I mean, even on, road trips, we were rooming together, and I was an athlete. It's just, I wanted to be around him because it made me better, right? It made me a better an athlete. It made me a better person. I became very close with his family. So it was natural. And kind of fast forward, I graduated from Iowa State. I moved out to the Olympic Training Center, and I was just training full-time freestyle, trying to make a world and Olympic team. I continue to, fall short of my goals leading up till I think it was 2015. The trials were here in Madison, Wisconsin, actually. And I think fell short of my goals there. And, I got a phone call from Coach Bono and said, listen, I got a chance to go to South Dakota State. He was out of wrestling at the time. Said, let's go do this, man. I told him, I was like, I don't know where Brookings, South Dakota is. I don't know why I want to be there, but I love you. I'll take a chance. I'll fly out there. I'll check out Brookings, South Dakota. And it was a blessing in disguise. And that's really where I started my coaching career, was with him. And, like you said, the relationship part of things is very important to me. It always has been. The loyalty part, you can't find a more loyal guy than Chris Bono. And that's why I've had opportunities to lead my own programs. And it's not been the right situation. And it's we're best friends. And it's been a great relationship being able to lead these programs together.
What are transitions like? It's different for everyone, but what was the transition from Kale to KJ for you?
It was great. I mean, I as on my competitive side of things and from the coaching side of looking back, I can't be more blessed than what I was. I essentially had 3 different head coaches that I came in contact with, built relationships, was able to pull knowledge from. Coach Jackson was he was an unbelievable, great coach to me, a great part of why I won a national title, a master of fundamentals. And Coach Sanderson was the same way, right? They were their own person. They were great in their own ways, and very fortunate for all the assistant coaches that came along with each staff. And I truly believe I took a little bit from each one of those guys and the assistant coaches as well. I know you had Tim Hartung on not too long ago. I was very close with Coach Hartung when he was at Iowa State, and he was one of my guys that I looked to. It was just a great person. So each one of those guys were a little bit different, but I loved it. I loved the process of each coach. They were certainly different on how they approached their own teams. But for me, I wanted that knowledge. I wanted to continue to grow, and every one of them was perfect for me.
You graduated in 2011 from Iowa State, and then you kept competing until just a couple of years ago. What keeps you in it? Like, unfortunately, we have a system with international wrestling where it's just one spot. That's the goal. And if you're not in that spot, it's not the top level, and you're maybe not seen as the all-star guy. But what keeps you going in wrestling, even though you might not get the carrot at the top?
Well, I think I had a goal in mind, and it was something I was chasing for a very long time. I think I'd really never – I mean, from a young age, looking back, I never really had the aspirations of having a long-term international career. I was always so fixated on my collegiate career and being a national champ, and that's all everybody ever talked about when I was a young kid, was being a national champ and watching those guys on ESPN win national titles and just visualize myself being that. It didn't really become a visual goal of mine until I really got to Iowa State as a freshman. And that's when I was like, you know what, I see these guys, what they're doing, and they're going on after college, and they're having successful international careers. They're traveling the world. They're able to represent their university, and it became very attractive to me. And at the time, luckily, the Cyclone Wrestling Club had an opportunity for guys to stay around, and they were able to fund multiple guys to stick around and train, and hopefully bring back world and Olympic medals to Ames. And I was fortunate to be one of those guys, and I took it as far as I could, right? I took it as far as I could, and I got to the point in my international career where getting third and fourth, domestically, that doesn't do you any good, right? It's not financially taking care of your family. I got married in 2017, and I started having a family. I had my first child, so making sure that they were taken care of was very important to me. And so starting my college coaching career was very smart.
Of course, Iowa versus Iowa State is a huge rivalry. It always will be, just because of the tradition and then how close they are. But When you look back, would you say your top rival would have been Ryan Morningstar at Iowa?
Yeah, I think it as one of them, right? I certainly think he is one that sticks out, and he was just an unbelievable competitor. And it was a guy that I looked forward to competing against, and he was tough as nails. And we're great friends now that the competitive side of things are done. And he's just a good guy. I think there's multiple guys that I competed against over the years that I can see the same thing about. Andrew Howe, multiple guys that I've competed against over the years that we're tough, and now that we're on the other side of things, we're great friends. And yeah, so multiple rivals. I can name a lot.
Yeah, name a few more. Like who you like?
I just think that I competed a lot against Andrew Howe. I competed a lot against Ryan and Morningstar. That's one of those guys. I think that people stick that out because that was, that Iowa State rivalry. But Andrew Howe, I think I've wrestled him 10 plus times since we've been in high school, all the way through collegiate, all the way through our international careers. So those two guys were fun to compete against.
Iowa State, when you think about some of those were some good matches. Were there any of those that stood out to you? I mean, the one that stands out to me was that 2010 year you guys had the race stage, and I think it was at Iowa or in Ames. But is there one that stands out to you?
Well, I think they were all unique in their own ways. I think some of them were lopsided more than we would like. But I think a couple of them that really stuck out was I really enjoyed the national duels, the way they were set up in, a ways back. And it always seemed that we would meet up with those guys, in the finals of that tournament. So it was it was an amazing team tournament, the national duels, that you would have multiple tough teams that you would lead up to, but it always eventually we got to Iowa State in the end, and it was just a fun time. And like you said, like any natural rivalry, there's a lot of competitiveness, so our team was always fired up whenever we got a chance to wrestle Hawkeye.
You said something earlier that was interesting when you made the decision to go to Iowa State. You said you've always been your own man, your own person. Was that something that you just always innately had in your personal journey, or did you have to come to a realization that I have to make decisions for myself?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's just how I've been raised, and I'm not going to be easily influenced just because of somebody's viewpoint. It's just when it came to the recruiting process, it was what I felt, right? My parents, they didn't go on any official visits with me. They said, listen, this is your decision. We want you to experience everything that the college recruiting process has to experience. And when it's all said and done, we'll sit down as a family. We'll do the pros and cons. And they were very, very supportive in which way I decided to go. And luckily I had the freedom to make those choices. And, I told my family when I was done with my Iowa State official visit that, listen, this is where I want to be. This is where I visualize myself being the best version of myself, having one heck of a student athlete experience, and somewhere I can see myself really settling down. And luckily they took a chance on me. It led to me accomplishing my goals of being a national champion, and I eventually met my wife there. So a lot to be grateful through. There's
some rabid fans at Iowa State for the wrestling program. They really get behind it. Do you still feel that as part of Cyclone Nation?
Yeah, I obviously I'm so focused on our own program here at Wisconsin, but obviously I think that the attendance was unbelievable when I was in school. Back through that era, I think there was a lot of big names that came through that era. It was easy to have 5,000-6,000 at any duel, and most of our duels we had more than that. So that's what you want as a student athlete. You want to compete and get in front of a big crowd and put on a show.
What do you want your athletes to get? Of course, you guys have built a good program there at Wisconsin, but if you take your philosophy and how you want to apply what you've learned into the current athletes, how do you get that message across?
Well, I think it's just our fundamental values that we preach to our guys every day, and it's something that we've come up with over the last few years, and something that we truly believe in is just your hustle, effort, and attitude. We preach that every day to our guys, and how do you maximize your hustle, effort, and attitude in every aspect of your life, whether it be socially, academically, or athletically. If you give your best effort in all those areas, great things are going to happen. Right. And it's hard it's easy to say it, but it's hard to implement it for some of these guys, being able to be positive and give your best effort in all of those areas is difficult for a lot of guys. So really that's our mentality when we approach everything. And that's something I want to give to our guys is control what you can control. And those are huge for us.
Of course, everyone's on their individual journey and where they understand concepts and principles, but do you feel like athletes today, they understand what you're talking about, or do they just maybe need to be led and then they're going to understand it later? I mean, you're in it. What do you see with these college athletes and how they process information?
Well, I think each guy's a little bit different, right? I think each guy's a little bit different the way they process things. Some need to be led. Some need their hands held, and some don't need anything, right? Some of them just need to get out of their way. And certainly knowing, how each guy reacts is important, but fundamentally we approach it the same way with every guy when it comes to your hustle, effort, and attitude. I think those are your core values that we live and breathe by. Those is give me your best hustle, effort, and attitude. And it's very easy, right? With these guys see it, they hear it day in and day out, and that's something that's defined our programs and something we're proud about.
You have said you've had opportunities to maybe be a head coach, and you at some point would like to be a head coach. Do you and Chris Bono have conversations about what that might look like?
You know what, we have. I think that it's got to be the right situation as far as, taking over a program. Absolutely. That is the next step in my career, would be to be a head coach, hopefully. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity that Coach Bono's given me. I've cut my teeth with him coaching, and he's taught me a lot along the way, and he's given me a lot of freedom too, which I'm very grateful for. He's given me a lot of freedom to really develop my own coaching style. When it comes to, right when I got to South Dakota State, he said, listen, I want to find things that you love to do. And luckily relationships are something that I love, and recruiting comes natural, and building relationships is a big part of the recruiting process. So I had a completely blank slate when it came to how do I want to develop myself as a recruiter, right? And how do I want to approach this? So I reflected a lot on my own experiences, but no doubt about it, someday I want to be a head coach. And right now we're just focused on what we're doing.
What are your best coaching attributes?
I'm myself, man. I like it or not, I am who I am. And I think that I understand relationships. I've been, I just think that's one of my biggest attributes is the recruiting side of things, and building relationships with administration. Every aspect of what it comes to running a program is very important, right? It's not just your couple hours that you're in the restroom. There's multiple other aspects to the program: marketing, branding, fundraising, X, Y, and Z that come along. And I love every hat that you have to wear.
One of the hats you have to wear is alumni relations, keeping alumni engaged. How have you done that successfully?
You know what, we got here, and the biggest thing about Coach Bono and I has been when we first got here, we want all the alumni back, and the way we did that is, listen, we want all of you guys. Our phones are on. We want to go out and we want to talk to every alumni. We want you guys to be back and involved, and that's very important to us. We want to make sure that the gaps that we're not seeing, the older, the middle-aged guys that are just graduated, we want you guys to have a piece and want you to be proud of this Badger program. And alumni relations has been very important. We take phone calls day in and day out of alumni that are proud to say they're Badgers and former Badgers. And I'll tell you what, over year one, I think we're averaging about 3,500 fans a dual meet, and that's up from 2 years ago 500 maybe. And a lot of them are alumni that are just rejuvenated, re-energized, and fired up about where this program's going. And the Wisconsin is a very passionate fan base, and they love their sport of wrestling, and it's been exciting to they wanted it so bad. They needed some new energy in the program.
One of the families that I like, and it's all the way out in California, so it's not even in the Midwest, and it's the Wick family. What do they bring to the Wisconsin program?
Oh, it's been great. They're unbelievable competitors, great people, a great family. Like you said, it's been really fun to work with Xander and Evan, and they're great representatives of the university, and they hold themselves very high to a high standard. And it's been really fun to watch those guys grow. Unfortunately for Evan, he didn't get a chance to compete at the NCAA tournament this year, but we're excited for next season for him.
How do you keep Seth Gross around? I'm assuming you want to keep him in the program somehow. How do you keep him engaged?
Yeah, so right away we got Seth Gross is committed to be competing in our regional training center. We have a fully funded regional training center here. So he's going to be sticking around. He just bought a house here in Madison. He's going to be competing in our regional training center and hopefully bringing world and Olympic medals back to Madison.
Do you like RTCs?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's just a great opportunity for our guys to continue to train year round. It's been fun. We've been fortunate enough to have Ben Askren as our head coach of our regional training center. So we have multiple guys. Nick Becker, third on the Olympic ladder. Newton Smartcheck. Rana Heaton is a cadet world champion. So we have multiple guys and women that are in our regional training center, and it gives them an opportunity to give back to our guys and chase their dreams of world and Olympic medals as well.
A few times I've been to Madison, I've just been impressed by it. When you get recruits, do they like the vibe of Madison? It's a cool place.
It's unbelievable, right? It's a great college town. I mean, it's been voted multiple times one of the best college football experiences, college game day experiences in the country. So with that being said, it's just an amazing city. If you come here, you have every walk of life, every opportunity that you want. If you're into a certain thing, if you want to be on the lake, if you want to be in the woods, we have anything you need here. It's a really, really cool college town, and it has a little bit for everybody.
Do the kids today understand the history? When I think of Wisconsin, I think of Lee Kemp, Jim Jordan, Andy Ryan, Russ Hellickson. Are they engaged with who those guys are?
Absolutely. We have those guys' names and banners in our wrestling room, so they see what is done in the past here, and they're very, very excited about the future. And like I said, we have high aspirations for these guys here, and we have high aspirations and goals for this program. And just finishing year 2, I think we're ahead of schedule, and it's going to continue to take great recruiting classes and great efforts in our part to get to where we want to be, and that's to win national titles as a team. And I truly believe that we have the resources and everything that we need from an administration standpoint. Chris McIntosh, our athletic director, Barry Alvarez, those guys are unbelievable here, right? They're a first-class program that when we got here, they said, listen, we will give you anything you need to get where you need to be. And that's we know your vision of wanting to win national titles. So here, whatever you need. So it's been unbelievable.
When you heard that it's postponed for 2021, the Olympic Games, any thought in your mind that, hey, I have another year to recover, I'm going to try it next year?
I don't think that feeling ever leaves, right? I don't know when that feeling will ever go away. I certainly think that in my own mind, I think I can compete until I'm in a walker or something. But no, it's 100% one focus on these guys and making sure that I'm doing everything in my power to help them reach the best version of themselves.
Chris Bono says he has one more match. Who do you think that match is going to be against?
You know what? I have a couple names that I would love to see him wrestle, and I think that he is right when he says he's got one match left in him. I think we put together a little tournament, maybe an old timer tournament. Him, Doug Schwab, Sammy Hansen, put them all in a bracket and see who comes out.
I want that, man. Let's make that happen.
I would pay to go to that. I'd pay to go to that.
Just don't get me excited. Don't get me excited and then pull the plug and say it's not going to happen. Right. That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. So right now, let's just end with this. The phase you're at right now, we are in lockdown, but what are you getting accomplished during this quarantine time?
You know, through this quarantine and through this lockdown, we're doing the best that we can, and that's just simply making sure that we're taking care of our guys first, making sure that we're listening to whatever they need. We have 32 guys on our roster. We're checking in every day or two and just listening, right? All 32 guys, we're making sure that they're taken care of from a nutrition standpoint, from if they need psychologists, if they need strength and conditioning. Our strength and conditioning staff's actually sending them equipment, kettlebells, bands, dumbbells, so whatever they need so they don't have to leave their homes and put themselves in danger. From a nutrition standpoint, our nutritionist is sending them supplements, proteins, everything that you can think of right to their doorsteps. They're in constant contact with their academic advisor. So from that standpoint, they're completely taken care of. And then on top of that, we're checking in daily. And then the next layer would be recruiting, right? So this Zoom, we've gotten really good with this Zoom. And I think that we carve out 5 or 6 hours a day, Coach Bono and I, just making sure that we're popping in with our recruits, making sure that we're popping in with guys that are committed, and making sure that that transition is easy. And like I said, just making sure that they know we care and we're here for them.